Page 456 continued. Prose. The historic decision to use English for official communication and as a medium of instruction for higher education in place of Sanskrit or Persian resulted in the creation of vast literature on various disciplines in English. In the beginning, English prose was used for conversation and for communication of thoughts on common and mundane topics. Page 457. The first extant prose writing is C.V. Boraya's Boriah 28-page account of the Giants, 1809. Indians learnt writing prose from English masters like Burke, Macaulay, Carlyle, Gladstone, Ruskin and Matthew Arnold. Ramon Roy, Dadabhai Nauroji, Ramgopal Ghosh, Mahadev Govind Ranade and other pioneers of Indian Renaissance and struggle for independence were influenced by the late Victorians and Edwardians. But what distinguishes their prose, both oratorical and written, is the cultivation of an individual style suited to the expression of Indian sensibility and ethos. Marjorie Boulton, Boulton, speaks highly of Indian English prose writers. Quote, English people who will not trouble to write their own language well ought to be shamed by reading the English of such Indian writers as Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, his sister Krishna Nehru, Rabindranath Tagore, Mulkraj Anand, D.F. Karaka, Professor Radhakrishnan, and a number of obscure Indians to be met in Indian universities. Unquote. Stop. Para. Journalism played a significant role to popularize English and to harness it to the expression of various debatable topics: political unrest and attainment of independence, religious and social reformation. It flourished with the rise of pamphleteering and the rise of journalism in English. Raja Ramon Roy expressed his ideas through Samvat Kaumudi. S. C. Mukherjee founded the Dawn in 1897. Ranade started Indu Prakash, to which Sri Aurobindo contributed a series of articles entitled New Lamp for Old. The Hindu and the Patriot expressed political ideas and opinions. During the era of Indian Renaissance, prose was, quote, prompted by twofold impulse of the rediscovery of the Indian past and a strong awareness of the problems of the day, unquote. Stop. Before Ramon Roy, the Cavalli brothers, Venkata Ramaswamy, Venkata Lakshminath and Venkata Boraya wrote English prose with ease and grace. Para. The pioneers of prose, 1820 to 1900. Raja Ramon Roy, 1774 to 1833, is the first great prose writer whose works include A Defense of Hindu Theism, 1817, Counter-Petition of the Hindu Inhabitants of Calcutta against Sati, 1818, The Precepts of Jesus, 1820, Autobiographical Sketches, 1833, and many other pamphleteers. Roy's famous letter on English education, 1823, is the first authentic piece of Indian English prose. He is considered the Addison in Indian English prose. Roy's autobiographical sketch is the earliest work in Indian English autobiographical literature. Commenting on his prose style, C. Paul Verghese writes, quote, his style was the standard prose of a cultivated late 18th century gentleman. Stop. Clarity and exactness were his aim. Stop. He used prose as a medium for the effective communication of ideas. Unquote. Stop. Para. Keshab Chandra Sen's 1838 to 1884 speeches are characterized by eloquence, spontaneity, precision and clarity. Dadabhai Nauroji, 1825 to 1927, was a forceful orator and writer. His famous works Poverty of India, 1873, Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, 1901, Essays, Speeches, Addresses and Writings, 1887, and Speeches and Writings, 1916, reveal sincerity and firmness of conviction and are remarkable for vehemence, persuasiveness, argumentation, sincerity, precision, and conversational ease. Mahagovind Ranade, 1840-1890, a thinker and social reformer, contributed to Indu Prakash. His famous works are The Rise of the Maratha Power, 1900, Essays in Indian Economics, 1898, Religious and Social Reform, 1902, and Miscellaneous Writing, 1915. The Rise of the Maratha Power is a classic in prose. Deep thoughts have been used in simple and intelligible language. He nativized English to express Indian ethos and sensibility. He frequently used Indian words which denote cultural and social contexts as mohars, sannyasi, Shudra, ashram, ekadasi, yoga, mukti, etc. Para. K. M. Banerjee, Banerji, 1813 to 85, a Christian convert and social reformer, contributed articles to the Enquirer. His works are dialogues on Hindu philosophy and Aryan witness. Bal Shastri Jambhekar, Jambhekar, 1812 to 1846, published the first Marathi-English journal, the Darpan, Durpan. Luftullah's Autobiography of Luftullah, 1854, and Recollections of My School Days by Lal Bihari De are earliest autobiographical writings. Kashinath Trumbak, Triumback, Telang, Telang, 1856 to 1893, one of the most effective orators of his time, collected his speeches and his writings in 2 volumes. His style is simple, clear, lucid. Other important works in Indian English prose of this period are R.C. Dutt's The Peasantry of Bengal, A History of Civilization in Ancient India, Famine and Land Assessment in India, 1900, The Economic History of India, Rambles in India, and The Literature of Bengal. He wrote varied type of prose, page 458. His historical prose is well documented. B. M. Malabari's Gujarat and Gujaratis, 1882, and Rambles of a Pilgrim Reformer, 1891, are travelogues. He shows an uncanny knock for satire, irony, wit, and humor. Para. Swami Vivekananda, 1863 to 1902, and Ramtirtha, 1873 to 1906, began writing mystical and spiritual prose which paved the way for Sri Aurobindo, Tagore, and Yogananda. Vivekananda's speeches and writings reveal him as a magnificent artist at work, handling the language with superb skill. As a writer of prose of social thought, spiritual and mystical prose, and autobiographical prose, he is matchless. My life and mission and my master and his letters have an abiding autobiographical interest. He had an enviable command over language which he used with utmost spontaneity, clarity, lucidity, eloquence, and rhythmical felicity. His style reflects his personality. He once said, quote, "My ideal of language is my master's language, most colloquial and yet most expressive." unquote. Swami Ramatirtha, 1873-1906, speeches and writings compiled in Woods of God Realization are the expression of deep and subtle thoughts in clear, lucid and simple style. His style is succinct and precise. Proverbial expressions abound in his prose. Para. Towards the Dawn, 1901 to 1947. The great thinkers, statesmen and leaders needed English to express their resentment against the British rule and ardent patriotic fervour, and to expose social evils hindering national progress. Journalism also nourished the growth and development of English prose during this period. Tilak and Mahatma Gandhi were journalists of high order. Sri Aurobindo, Tagore, Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru were great thinkers and writers who founded in the real sense the tradition of writing prose in English. Mahatma Gandhi evolved simple, clear, pointed, vigorous and convincing style which appealed equally to the scholar and to the common man. Communicability of ideas is an outstanding characteristic of his prose. He exercised great influence on the development of prose. Commenting on his influences, K.R.S. Iyengar remarks, quote, thus, it was that Gandhi exercised a potent influence on our language and literatures, both directly through his own writings in England and Gujarati and indirectly through the movements generated by revolutionary thought and practice, unquote, para. Besides journalism and political prose, various prose genres, autobiography, biography, travelogue, reminiscence, were written and with excellence during this period. What distinguishes the prose of this period is the evolution of Indian style and the flawless expression of Indian sensibility. Para. Gopal Krishna Gokhale, 1866 to 1915, the, quote, political guru, unquote, of Mahatma Gandhi shows intellectual sharpness and moral earnestness in his speech and writings. Speeches, 1908, and Speeches and Writings, published posthumously in 1962. High seriousness, command over language, orderliness, compactness and fusion of thought and emotion characterize his prose. Bal Gangadhar Tilak, 1856-1920, the Aryan researchers in the Antiquities of the Vedas, 1893, the Arctic Home in the Vedas, 1903, Gita Rahasya, 1915, Writings and Speeches, 1922, and Towards Independence, posthumously published in 1975, are marked by vehemence, eloquence, ruggedness, logic, and argumentativeness. His famous speech on Swaraj is an imperishable classic of oratory and prose style. His style is heavy, scholarly, and ponderous. Lala Lajpat Rai, 1865 to 1928, the Lion of Punjab, was a forceful orator whose style is tinged with irony and satire. His style rises and falls with emotions. Hardayal, 1882 to 1939, whose Hints for Self-Culture is a work of high literary merit, propagated like Matthew Arnold, quote, the best that has been taught and known, unquote, Like the essays of Bacon, Hints for Self-Culture is packed with valuable suggestions, expressed with lucidity, sincerity and precision. It is a classic, a book for all times and for all countries. V. S. Srinivasa Shastri's 1869-1946 Lectures on the Ramayana is a work of, quote, a man with fine sensibility, unquote, who used English with ease and sureness and utter naturalness, unquote, para. C. Rajagopalachari, 1879 to 1972, a well-known philosopher, astute statesman, ardent patriot, successful administrator, and, quote, undefatigable speaker and writer, unquote, comma, was the first and the last Governor-General of Free India. The Vedas, Upanishads, Ramayana and Mahabharata, Bible, Quran, the teachings of Ramakrishna Paramahansa and Vivekananda, the enlightened thoughts of Plato, Marcus Aurelius and Shakespeare influenced his thought and style. His famous works in English are Fatal Cart and Other Stories, Marcus Aurelius, Socrates, The Story of Mahabharata, The Story of Ramayana, Hinduism, The Doctrine and Way of Life, Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, Gandhiji's teachings and philosophy, Our Culture and Satyameva Jayate, page 459. None of Rajaji's contemporaries could surpass him in the amplitude of wisdom and idealism expressed in lucid, clear, succinct and graceful style. Para. Purohit Swami is an Indian monk, his life and adventures in his autobiography, which reveals the life of a God-intoxicated man. K. M. Munshi, a profound scholar of philosophy, religion, history and literature, was an illustrious writer. Somnath, the shrine eternal, the glory of Gurjaradesa, sparks from the anvil and warnings of history are Munshi's famous works. His contribution to Indian English prose is in measure small. K. R. S. Iyengar writes about his contribution to literature. His quote, writings in English have, on the whole, been more utilitarian, comprising biography, literary history, essays, lectures, letters, than his outstanding creative work in Gujarati, unquote, stop, para. The era of national awakening was the golden age in Indian English prose. Sir Firoz Shah Mehta's speeches and writings, 1905. Sardin Shah Watcher's reminiscences, shells from the sands of Bombay, and speeches and writings. K. N. Kelkar's Pleasures and Privileges of the Pen. Surendranath Banerjee's A Nation in Making, being the reminiscences of 50 years of public life. Bipin Chandra Pal's Nationality and Empire, 1916. Indian Nationalism. Introduction to the Study of Hinduism and Memoirs of My Life and Time. Sarojini Naidu's Speeches and Writings. Cornelia Surabji's India Calling, Subhash Chandra Bose's important speeches and writings and complete works, M. N. Roy's New Humanism, a manifesto and his autobiographical writings, fragments of prison diary, my experiments in China and memoirs, B. R. Ambedkar's The Spoke Ambedkar, Ambedkar's speeches and writings, Sardar Patel's For a United India, speeches, socialism, Sardar Patel's For a United India, stop. Speeches, socialism, history of India and Indian National Congress, and Gandhiism. A. K. Azad's Speeches in India Wins Freedom. G. B. Kripalani's The Gandhian Way. R. R. Divakar's Satyagraha, Its History and Technique. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee's Awake, Hindustan, and Acharya Narendra Dev's Socialism and the National Revolution are some memorable prose works of this era. In the field of biography and autobiography writing, too, Indian English writers make remarkable contribution. Some of the memorable autobiographies are Paramhans Yogananda's The Autobiography of a Yogi, D. K. Karve's Looking Back, B. K. Ghosh's The Tale of My Exile, General Mohan Singh's Leaves from My Diary, Dhanagopal Mukherjee's Caste and Outcast, Santharam Rao's Home to India and Gifts of Passage, 1961, Puran Singh's On Paths of Life, Bipin Chandra Pal's Memories of My Life and Tunes, and Mulkraj Anand's Apology for Heroism, a brief autobiography of ideas. Para. Mahatma Gandhi was one of the greatest warriors of this period. Indian English prose, beg your pardon? Mahatma Gandhi was one of the greatest writers of this period. Indian English prose yielded a rich harvest in varied kind of prose journalism, biography, autobiography, travelogues, prose for political, social, economic purpose, etc. during this period. The great writers of this period brought about a change, quote, from the elaborate to the simple, comma, from the ornate to the plain, comma, from the opulent to the pointed, unquote, stop. Para. Mahatma Gandhi was not a professional writer. Writing was his necessity. He used words purposely to communicate his message of truth, love, non-violence and universal brotherhood to his countrymen and to the world at large. He wrote to propagate his ideas. K.R.S. Iyengar writes, quote, "Writing with him was not for writing's sake, nor speaking for speaking's sake, but for achieving communication, for conveying information, for converting people to his own point of view," unquote, stop. So Gandhiji, in the words of J.H. Holmes, quote, wrought a style which was perfect for purpose of communication, unquote, stop, para. As a writer, he was influenced by Ramcharitmanas, Gita, Upanishads, Bible, the Sermon on the Mount, Quran, Tolstoy, Ruskin, Emerson, Thoreau, etc. Para. Gandhiji essayed many prose genres. His earliest literary effort, London Diary, 1888, is a travelogue. He began his literary career as a journalist by contributing to the Indian Opinion, Young India, Navjivan and Harijan. He started the publication of Navjivan and Young India in 1919 and 1920 respectively. In 1933, he started the publication of Harijan in 1933. Hind Swaraj or Indian Home Rule 1908 is an important work in Gandhiji's literary activity in South Africa. Middleton Murray calls it, quote, the greatest look that has been written in modern times, unquote, stop. His autobiography, The Story of My Experiments with Truth, is, quote, one of the imperishable classics of our time, unquote, stop. It is a phenomenal contribution to literature. Its style is marked by simplicity, biblical lucidity, pointedness, clarity, and effortless ease. Page 460. It reveals, quote, a very ordinary man who became a saint by setting for himself impossible standards and then spiritual power to live up to them, unquote, stop. Para. Gandhiji's influence on literature is immense. Dr. K.R.S. Iyengar remarks, quote, thanks to the Gandhian example, Indian writing in English became recognizably functional. Gone were the old Macaulayan amplitude and richness of phrasing and weight of miscellaneous learning. Gandhian writing was as austere and bare as was his own life, unquote, stop. Para. Rabindranath Tagore. Tagore, a superb poet and dramatist, made noticeable contribution to the development of various prose genres and the evolution of prose style. His prose reveals his universal human concerns, his vision of the innate unity of mankind. His outstanding prose works, Nationalism, Personality, Creative Unity, Lectures and Addresses, and The Religion of Man, were written in English. He wrote a varied kind of prose which shows one aspect of his genius in his letters and the other in his philosophical and autobiographical writings. He was primarily a poet, and the entire bulk of his prose has an unfailing poetic quality. Indeed, Tagore wrote a, quote, poet's prose, unquote, stop, para. Tagore's letters in English are a record of his experiences and ideas about culture, customs, manners, social traditions, people and places. He wrote letters in English to Sturge, Sturge Moore, Moore, C.F. Andrews, W.W. Pearson, Leonard Elmhurst and other foreign celebrities. My boyhood days and my reminiscences are autobiographical. Lectures and addresses delivered in China in 1924 appeared in 1928. Sadhana, the religion of art, the religion of an artist, lectures and addresses, the religion of man, personality, creative unity and nationalism expound his views on art and poetry, art and man, aesthetics and literary criticism. Para. Tagore's prose style is noted for vigor, ease, clarity and flexibility. His symbols and images are conspicuous for concreteness, visualization and suggestiveness. His prose is one of the finest examples of poetic prose. Para. Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo produced an enormous and varied mass of prose on religious, metaphysical, spiritual, social, political, cultural and literary subjects. He started his career as a writer anonymously in Indu Prakash in 1893-94. His political and social prose is journalistic, and it was published in a series of articles in Indu Prakash. His style in these articles, also known as New Lamps for the Old, is characterized by frankness, simplicity, sarcasm and balance. His famous monograph, Bhavani Mandir, aimed at awakening the masses and is suffused with ardent revolutionary thought. It is written in vehement and forceful style. It has an undercurrent of mysticism also. Sri Aurobindo's essays and articles contributed to the Bande Mataram have a wide catholicity of appeal. In these articles, he interpreted various aspects of India's sublime and rich cultural heritage in chaste and powerful prose. In 1909, Sri Aurobindo started the publication of the Karma Yogin, quote, a weekly review of national, religious, literature, science, philosophy, unquote, etc. In Pondicherry, now Puducherry, he started the publication of the monthly Arya, in which most of his later writings initially appeared. In it, he also published the results of his meditations and religious experiences. Para. The Life Divine, The Synthesis of Yoga, The Human Cycle, The Ideal of Human Unity, the essays on the Bhagavad Gita, and the interpretations of the Vedas and the Upanishads contain Sri Aurobindo's philosophical, religious and mystical thoughts. Para. The future poetry, which originally appeared in a series of essays in the Arya from 1512-1917 to 1507-1920, and the third series of his letters, published under the title Letters of Sri Aurobindo, discuss with penetrating insight the nature, elements and techniques of poetry, and traces the development of English poetry from the beginning to his own time. He is the pioneer of overhead poetry. Poetry is only for soul's sake. Para. Sri Aurobindo's prose style is flexible and is characterized for its suitability to themes. His early journalistic prose is remarkable for adaptability and flexibility which result from the correspondence with the subject matter, mood and the occasion. His style in his philosophical works lacks the clarity and effectiveness of his early journalistic prose. It is the abstract and heavy. His letters and speeches are direct and informal. Para. Jawaharlal Nehru. Jawaharlal Nehru's place as a thinker and writer is very high in Indian English prose. John Gunther, Gunther, a renowned journalist, thinks, quote, ... hardly a man alive writes English as well as Nehru, unquote, stop, page 461. C.D. Narasimha observes, quote, Jawaharlal is not a politician who gives a literary vice to his writing, but an intellectual whom the times have drawn into the vortex of politics, unquote, stop. Nehru was, quote, a gifted writer wielding the pen as an artist, unquote, stop. Para. Nehru wrote a varied type of prose. The Glimpses of World History 1934 and The Discovery of India 1946 are famous works of historical prose. The first is epical in scope. It consists of letters written to his daughter, Indira, from prison during 1930 to 33. It is an interesting survey of world history from the beginning of civilization to 1930s. It abounds in literary graces and is a fine specimen of lucid, simple and clear English. The discovery of India in the world of Mulkraj Anand, is, quote, an attempt to understand the whole of India's past, ... unquote. It is noticeable for its poetic and artistic quality. Precision and economy of expression, clarity and simplicity, subtle poetic touches and musical flow of language characterize its style. Para. Nehru's autobiography ranks with the great autobiographies of the world. In it, Nehru presents a picture both of himself and of the nation. It is both subjective and objective, personal and impersonal, lyrical and epical, real and imaginative. Sincerity, directness, and vigor are in evidence on every page. Para. Nehru was a skilled, better writer. His letters, printing mistake. Nehru was a skilled letter writer. His letters in From a Father to His Daughter and a bunch of old letters give a making, vivid, intimate and candid account of sorrows, sufferings and heartaches of Nehru. His occasional writings, recent essays and writings as The Future of India, Communalism and Other Subjects 1934, India and the World 1936, The Unity of India Collected Writings 1937 to 40, Before and After Independence Collected Speeches 1922 to 1950, and Independence and After Collected Speeches 1946 to 1964, despite their topical significance, are conspicuous for literary graces. Para. Nehru was a great writer. Walter Crocker, Crocker, thinks that Nehru, quote, wrote better English than most of us born to the language, unquote, stop. His prose style is always simple, precise, direct, lucid, suggestive and expressive, unquote, stop. Para. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, quote, is a philosopher, statesman with an international reputation, a scholar with a phenomenal memory, a resourceful and eloquent and effective speaker, and a voluminous writer with an uncanny flair for lucidity and epigrammatic strength, unquote, stop. His famous works are The Philosophy of Rabindranath Tagore, 1918, The Reign of Religion in Contemporary Philosophy, 1920, Indian Philosophy, The Hindu View of Life, 1926, Kalki or the Future of Civilization, 1929, An Idealist View of Life, 1932, Eastern Religious and Western Thought, 1939, The Bhagavad Gita, 1948, Dhammapada, 1951, The Principal Upanishads, 1953, Brahma Sutras, 1960, Religion in a Changing World, 1953, Occasional Speeches and Writings, Series 3, 1952 to 62, and President Radhakrishnan's Speeches and Writings, 1965, para. Dr. Radhakrishnan is, quote, a distinguished Indian master of English, unquote. All his writings are conspicuous for originality and depth of thoughts, mysticism and idealism, humanism and optimism. He has immensely influenced both Eastern and Western thinkers by virtue of his deep and profound thoughts, flawless expression, matchless perfection of style, and oratorical force. Dr. Radhakrishnan's prose bears the imprint of his profound scholarship, sharp and penetrating intellect, religious attitude, and philosophical vision. His style is the finest specimen of elevated style in Indian English prose. In it, he combines originality and sublimity of thought with calm and powerful feelings. Assessing his abiding contribution to Indian English prose, P. N. Rao says, quote, he molded the English language with perfect ease, astounding selectivity, unquote. A critic writes about his style, quote, such clear, vigorous English can only come from clear and vigorous thinking, Now and then it rises to heights of poetic diction, and we feel that the author adds sensibility of the artist to the intellect of a scholar, unquote, section. The era of independence, para. During this period, the dimension of Indian English prose widened. Some of the writers of the previous era, Nehru, Dr. Radhakrishnan, and many others, continued to write vigorously. What distinguishes this period is the emergence of new writers, Nirod C. Choudhury, Ved Mehta, APJ Abdul Kalam, Raghunathan, M. Chalapati Rao, Khushwant Singh, etc. English is being used for various purposes, and it has become a natural mode of expression for educated Indians. The rise of magazine literature, research journals on specialized disciplines, and the need of international communication has immensely enlarged the possibilities of the multidimensional development of prose. Page 462, para. N. Ranganathan, the brilliant journalist who regularly contributed to the Hindu under the pseudonym, quote, Vigneshwara, unquote, has acquired great popularity. His weekly essays reveal his discipline of expression, conspicuous for flawless and effortless ease, radiant rationality, profound humanism, and love for eternal values. His Sotto Esotitio VOCE series of essays have been collected in the volumes Sotto Voci, The Coming of Freedom 1959, Our New Rulers 1961, The Abadi Socialists 1964, and Planners Paradise 1970. The extension lectures he delivered at Madras University have been published as Reason and Intuition in Indian Culture, 1969. He is a distinguished essayist. His style is noticeable for flawless ease, vigor, clarity, and refinement. He combines, quote, in his style the epigrammatic brevity of a Bacon with the whimsicality of a Lamb, unquote. Para. M. Chalapati Rao, the editor of the National Herald, was known as a journalist of versatility and power. Fragments of a Revolution 1965 is a collection of 36 essays remarkable for precision, minute observation, candid and powerful style. Gandhi and Nehru is Rao's another famous book. Para. Shishir Kumar Ghosh, a professor of English at Shantiniketan, is a profound thinker and writer. His famous works are Aldous Huxley, the later poems of Tagore, the poetry of Sri Aurobindo, Metastaetics and Other Aces, Mystics and Society, Modern and Otherwise, Lost Dimensions, For the Time Being, Meditations on Matricide, Rabindranath Tagore, and Crisis of Crisis. He contributed the core article on mysticism to the Encyclopaedia Britannica. His articles have appeared in national and international journals. A thought-provoking writer and spiritualist, a great scholar with encyclopedic erudition, an ardent Aurobindonian and mystic, Ghosh has written essays, criticism, biography, and philosophical criticism. Crisis of Crisis is a collection of his essays on, quote, the predicament of man today, sometimes described as the crisis of civilization, unquote, stop. Ghosh's essays sparkle with wisdom expressed in chaste, precise, and lucid style. As an essayist, his place is unrivaled in modern Indian English prose. No other writer has attempted the essay form. Para. R.K. Narayan, the renowned novelist, has two collections of essays, Next Sunday, 1956, and Reluctant Guru, 1974. An autobiography, My Days, and a travelogue, My Dateless Diary, to his credit. His prose works are noticeable for keen observation of men and manners and gentle irony. His style is lucid, simple, and clear. Para. Tom Morris's My Father's Son, H.N. Chattopadhyay's Life and Myself, K.A. Abbas's I Write as I Feel, Nayantara Sehgal's From Fear Set Free, K.P.S. Menon's The Homecoming, Prem Bhatia's All My Yesterdays, Frank Morris's Witness to an Era, Ravi Shankar's My Music, My Life are some worth mentioning autobiographies by writers, artists, and journalists. The autobiographies of political leaders and men in public life are Mirza Ismail's My Public Life, A.M.R. Jayakar's The Story of My Life, N.G. Ranga's Fight for Freedom, A.K. Gopalan's The Cause of the People, Morarji Desai's The Story of My Life, C.D. Deshmukh's The Course of My Life, V.V. Giri's My Life and My Times, K.M. Panikkar's autobiography, M. Hidayatullah's My Own Boswell, M.C. Setalvad's My Life, Law and Other Things, M.O. Mathai's Reminiscences of the Nehru Age and My Days with Nehru, and M. Visheshwaraya's Memoirs of My Working Life. Para. The prose literature of this period is rich in biography. Mahatma Gandhi, J.L. Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Sardar Patel, B.R. Ambedkar, R.N. Tagore, B.G. Tilak, etc. have attracted the utmost attention of biographers. D.G. Tendulkar's Mahatma, Life of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, is a monumental contribution to the art of biography writing. Publications Division of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting and Sahitya Academy have been publishing the biographies of eminent Indians. Para. Philosophers and saints have expressed their thoughts in English. Krishnamurti's best thoughts have been collected in The First and the Last Freedom, Life Ahead, The Matter of Culture and the Awakening of Intelligence. Sri Rajneesh's thoughts are found in From Sex to Superconsciousness, The New Evolution of Man. Para. Armando Menzes's Lighter Than Air and Airy Nothings, V.V. Jones' Light Luggage, The Orbiting Professor and the Great Classroom Hoax are some time collections of essays. Para. Kuldeep Nayyar, the eminent journalist, has written Between the Lines and India, The Critical Years, in crisp, easy and vigorous style. His writings are spiced with irony and sarcasm, which result from his minute observation of political and social situation. Page 463, Para. Ved Mehta, blind from the age of 3, presents a synthesis of tradition and modernity, East and West. His famous works, Face to Face, 1957, Fly and the Fly Bottle, 1962, The New Theolopian, 1965, Portrait of India, 1970, Walking the Indian Streets, 1971, John is Easy to Please, 1971, Mahatma Gandhi and His Apostles, 1977, The New India, 1978, Mamaji, 1979, The Photographs of Chachaji, 1980, A Family Affair, 1982, Vedi, 1982, and Ledge, L-E-A-D-G-E, Between the Streams, 1940, express his love both for his homeland and the West equally well. Mehta has achieved cultural synthesis, which is the distinctive feature of his writings. He writes about India with an quote, insiders' sensibility and outsiders' objectivity, unquote, stop. Mehta's style is impressionistic. His narrative is always a succession of images as they impinge themselves on his sensitive mind. Para. Nirod C. Choudhury. Choudhury, Chaudhary, the greatest and most controversial writer of the present era, is a product of Indian Renaissance. His famous works are The Autobiography of an Unknown Indian, 1951, A Passage to England, 1959, The Continent of Circle, 1966, The Intellectual in India, 1967, To Leave or Not to Leave, 1970, Scholar Extraordinary, 1974, and Thy Hand, Great Anarch, 1987. Para. Choudhury's autobiography of an unknown Indian is less a revelation of his life and personality and more a scholarly analysis of, quote, the conditions in which an Indian grew to manhood in the early decades of this century, unquote, stop. It is dedicated to, quote, the memory of the British Empire in India, unquote, stop. In it he emerges an inveterate Anglophile. A Passage to England, for which he was awarded the Duff Cooper Memorial Prize, is a travelogue about his experience and observations of European life. In it, Choudhury's Anglicism is predominant. The Continent of Circles, subtitled An Essay on the People of India, is a diatribe against the people of India. To Leave or Not to Leave is written for the anglicized Indian gentry. Scholar Extraordinary is an excellent biography of Friedrich Max Müller. Thy Hand, Great Anarch has autobiographical flavor. Para. As a thinker, Choudhury is controversial, but he is a writer of great intellectual and stylistic endowments. He has evolved two distinct prose styles. First, the self-conscious style, which is highly pedantic, overloaded with references and affectations, highly argumentative and sarcastic, as in the Autobiography of an Unknown Indian, A Passage to England, and The Continent of Circle. Secondly, in The Intellectual in India and To Leave and Not to Leave, he attains simplicity and discursiveness. Quote, the rhythm of his prose, unquote, comma, writes M.K. Nayak, quote, shows distinct affinities with 19th century models, but the athletic vigor of his style, his eye for lively anecdote and homely parallel, and his timely use of irony and satire save him ponderousness, unquote, stop.